All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be giving you guys our power rankings. We've been teasing it for a while. We're finally getting it out to you guys. It's week 10 of the NFL season, so a little bit past midway of the season power rankings, and it's absolutely freezing outside. I can't really stand it, but how are you, Josh?
Doing good. Yeah, we've been teasing this one for a while. We've been super busy. Finally able to get this one out for episode 65. But yeah, this, power rankings are always fun. It's kind of a healthy little exercise, to kind of let you know where we think your teams are at and what they should be doing.
Yeah, and I feel like going over our power rankings list, I feel like it was ordered pretty well. I feel like it's pretty reasonable. So I'm pretty excited to talk about it and get into it. We'll just get right into it right now. We'll start with the bottom tier. It's the Caleb Williams sweepstakes tier, and starting us off at 32. You guys kind of knew after Thursday Night Football, you knew who it was going to be. The Carolina Panthers. We saw it Thursday. They're just the least competent, the least competitive team in the NFL against the Bears. They weren't really there. They got outplayed by Tyson Bagent, and yeah, I just feel like zero weapons, a bad offensive line. It's just a recipe for disaster for Bryce Young. I kind of feel bad. It's not that he's played great or anything, but he's a good quarterback. I feel like watching the Panthers, he has flashes. He'll have some plays where he just escapes a crazy rush and he'll make a great throw on the run. So he has flashes. I'm not too worried, but until they get more weapons and other pieces, the Panthers are on the bottom.
Yeah, the Panthers are, it seems like they are now officially after that performance of the Bears are a step below every other team. And which is not a bad thing. I mean, they're a young organization. They just went and got I mean, they gave up a lot of capital to get Bryce Young. A lot of draft capital. They gave up DJ Moore, which 2020 hindsight, you wish they would have been able to keep him because they're so in desperate need of that alpha wide receiver presence like DJ Moore. Adam Thielen is great for the Panthers, but however, he's getting up there in age, and it looks like he's now slowly starting to regress this season after his crazy hot start. But yeah, the Panthers, they do have some really good key players, as in Bryce Young, who should turn into be a fantastic young quarterback, and Brian Burns on the other side of the ball. So with another high draft picks this year and free agency, and having a hopefully a pretty big salary cap number to go out there and spend big in free agency, hopefully they'll be able to be a little bit more competitive this year. But yeah, this is definitely a learning year for Bryce Young, and they definitely gave away the farm to get him, and that ultimately puts them as the worst team, sadly.
Yeah, it's just been a disaster for the Panthers. It hasn't clicked. All their new coaching staff and pieces haven't clicked yet. But I think the future is bright. And we'll go on to our number 31 team. It's the New England Patriots. We're just really grossed out by them at this point. Mac Jones has had a disastrous season. Their defense hasn't looked like the Patriots defense. We were kind of expecting more from the Patriots because we thought they'd have like a top 5, top 10 defense like they usually do. And it's been pretty abysmal. It's like one of the higher allowed points allowed defenses, and it's just not the Patriots that we're used to seeing.
No, and it looks like Bill Belichick is just, I mean, we've never seen anything like this. Who would have thought? And, for us younger, 20-year-olds and stuff who grew up with the Patriots, winning 6 Super Bowls or 7 Super Bowls, I can't even keep track. I think it's on, it's gone on to the other hand at this point. But it is kind of refreshing to see that, but it also is you kind of feel bad for Mac Jones, who's just tossed out there in the fire. And yeah, the Patriots it just doesn't look like anything's really clicking for them. And I would arguably say the Patriots probably have the worst offensive roster in the entire NFL. I mean, offensive weapons for sure. Outside of Ramondre Stevenson, it seems like there's just really nothing they can get them going at this point. And they're all bottom tier receivers, bottom of the barrel receivers who they're okay, but I mean they just don't really have any stars on that team. And I think they're a little ways out, and I think we're finally seeing the dynasty of the Patriots and that defense just come to a clash. And so it's weird to say that, but I don't know. Maybe Bill Belichick might be on his way out, and they might need to kind of start fresh.
Yeah, I think they do need a fresh start, and you summed it up well. I think they're like them and the Panthers of two teams with the two worst weapons in the NFL. So it's just tough to get anything going on offense. And we'll get on to the 30th team. It's the New York Giants. We've got them probably higher than some people just because we both love Tyrod. We expect Tyrod to get back next week. And Tyrod is serviceable enough to keep them in things when he's back because Saquon's a beast. He's been awesome this year. Waller's been a disappointment. The Giants' weapons aren't really great either. They're obviously down with the Patriots and Panthers for a reason. They've had a terrible season, but I think Tyrod Taylor gives them the edge over the Patriots and Panthers.
100%. Tyrod Taylor is going to win this team some football games. I mean, I think this week it's Tommy DeVito again, which Tommy DeVito probably makes them the worst team in the NFL if he's playing. But when Tyrod's healthy and back, I think they'll get some wins. And Tyrod distributes, pretty good throughout the offense. And he was running that offense pretty good. And they probably would have had another win or so on their record. Definitely against the Jets if Tyrod was playing in that. But yeah, and again, the Giants are kind of one of those teams trying to figure it out. The quarterback situation is tough. They just paid Danny Dimes a whole lot of money, to be their franchise guy, and they went out and got Brian DeBall. And they really do have some good weapons, but it's just, I don't know, it kind of seems a little icky right now. It just kind of seems like you're not feeling confident you're a Giants fan. I mean, you do have Kayvon Thibodeau, you do have Saquon Barkley. I mean, you have some really good pieces. You have, you spent a lot in your offensive line over the past couple of years. I mean, you got Andrew Thomas, you just got Evan Neal. I mean, you're hoping these guys pick it up, and you're hoping it just kind of comes together like it looked like it was coming together last year. But something kind of fell apart, and yeah, I mean, this is where they're at this year, sadly. But I mean, we'll see what the future holds for them.
It's weird. It's just the complete opposite from last year. It's weird with the Giants. Their defense has looked better as of late, so I'll give them that. And then we'll get on to the next team. The 29th team is going to be the Chicago Bears. They're just, kind of stagnant. They're probably just going to stay in this tier. We might be higher on them than some as well. They had a good game on Thursday night. I think Bajan's playing some serviceable football. I think they had a good game against the Saints. They were competitive in that game. Deontay Foreman is balling right now. Yeah, I think the Bears getting Montez Sweat in there. I did say in our preview that I thought Montez Sweat would go off on Thursday night, and he had 8 pressures, so that's pretty awesome. And yeah, I think the Bears getting some more pieces in there. Justin Fields coming back, Khalil Herbert almost coming back. So I think the Bears are right there with the Packers.
Yeah. And we'll see. It seems like the Bears, I don't know. I can't tell. I mean, they've kind of clicked a little bit. It almost seems like they've clicked better with Bajent in some weird aspect. It seems like they played a little bit more complementary, more team football. But yeah, Bajent's definitely been serviceable. And I mean, we're going to see Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields hopefully get back next week, which we'll see how that runs with the team. But yeah, I mean, the Bears getting Montez Sweat was actually huge, and they actually got him, which, they were signing Montez Sweat. They traded for him, and he had all the leverage, and they actually got him signed to a pretty team-friendly deal. So he's going to be there to stay, which was desperately needed, and that's huge fireworks for the defense right there. But yeah, the Bears, I do think they are a team with a lot of potential, and I know they have, 2 top 5 picks this year because of the Panthers. Well, they should have 2 top 5 picks. So I don't know. Future's bright for the Bears. I'm excited to see what they end up doing. But I mean, obviously they're bottom of the barrel team this year, but the future is very bright with them.
They can just secure Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison both. If they can just get the first 2 picks, that would be franchise changing. It would be so awesome to have those cornerstones. And we'll get on to the 2018 because the Packers are really similar to the Bears, I feel like, but their defense is a little bit better. Love hasn't been great, but he is decent. He's been spreading it to the weapons a little bit better. So I think the Packers are just a little bit better than the Bears.
Yeah, I agree. They're just a little notch above. And the Packers are they're just an interesting team to me this year. I can't really figure them out. But again, like I keep rephrasing, bottom of the barrel team this year. I mean, they do have some good pieces, but I don't know. I don't know if they need a new coaching staff or what's really just not clicking for them, but I don't know. They're in my opinion, they're kind of one of the more grosser teams in the NFL.
And speaking of gross, we'll get real quick. Get to our 27 and 26 teams. The Raiders and Cardinals are going to finish off our Caleb sweepstakes tier. And yeah, both similar teams. You get Kyler Murray back, so that is exciting. The Cardinals and Raiders do have some star talent, and Kyler, James Conner, Hollywood, and Josh Brown and Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and Max Crosby. So yeah, some good stars, but the rest of the rosters over there just isn't ready and filled out enough yet for this season.
Yeah, Raiders are an absolute disaster class. I mean, they kind of hang in there to get themselves like bottom of the top 10 pick is kind of where they seem to be at. But at this point, if I was the Raiders, I would start selling the farm. I mean, go out and I don't promote trading Max Crosby, but I mean, if you can get 3 first-round picks for him, if you can get 2 first-round picks, if you can go out and get a second and a third for Devontae Adams, I think you got to start considering at this point. I think they need a total rebuild, and until they do that, I mean, their team's going to be horrible. And then the Cardinals, we'll see. We'll see how Kyler plays. I'm not as big of a Kyler hater, but I think he does add that element to that team to make them better than these bottom teams right here.
Yep, definitely. We'll see what they do in the offseason to get more competitive for next year. But we'll get on to our next tier. It's a competitive tier. I feel like all these teams are competitive week in and week out. Even if they're towards the bottom of the power rankings, they're still solid. They played solid so far. And we actually did move the Rams up. They were on the Caleb tier, and I did a little pivot as I was editing. I think the Rams probably belong to be in here. They played good with Stafford. We're going to assume that Stafford's back after the bye. I think the Rams have been competitive enough to be in this tier, and they're going to come in at our 25 spot because they've surprised about everyone. They're kind of everyone's like projected first, second overall pick next year, and they've played pretty good. They've been competitive on offense and defense. So
yeah, and I'm just gonna say with all these teams, this is kind of like I'd almost label them, they're frisky. They're the teams you don't want to play because you never know when they're gonna show up to play. And they can upset anyone at any given moment. That's just kind of like what this whole tier is like. I don't think you want to go in there and really play the Broncos. They went in there and they upset the Chiefs. The Colts, they're a team that can really beat anyone on any given week. They're just not going to be consistent enough to
like the
do it.
Ravens.
Yeah, it's just consistency with these teams. And that's kind of what my bottom line is for most of these teams. It's just the consistent play. They're so up and down. But yeah, we're starting out with the Rams though. It just kind of shows you we thought they'd be a lot worse. And they're fighting every week, and it just kind of shows you they're very, very good with their late round picks. These guys that no one's heard of, they're very good at bringing these guys in the building and having them make a contribution. I mean, given Puka Nacua this year, but yeah, I mean, we all thought the Rams would be in the Caleb sweepstakes. Somehow they're one tier above it.
Yeah, you love to see it. They've had a successful season so far. Hopefully Stafford can stay healthy and keep it up. And we'll get on to the 24 team, the Falcons. They started off really hot, and they've kind of died down to where we kind of expected them to be. They've regressed a little bit. And yeah, Arthur Smith has kind of made a fool out of himself. He's kind of getting a lot of flack. Fun fact, it kind of makes a lot more sense. I don't know why, but Arthur Smith's father is the founder and CEO of FedEx. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, that's just interesting.
I had no idea. That is so random.
I feel like that explains some things about him, though. I feel like that explains why he's so like just stuck up about playing Bijan and giving him the ball in the 5-yard line. I feel like he's just a stuck up guy, and he's just stuck in his own ways. I don't know.
Arthur Smith is an absolute clown, and he said something. I don't know if you saw it was tweeted the other day, but Arthur Smith in an interview said that that not giving Bijan the ball allows for other players to open up the field more or something because he's such a distraction. It's like he's such a distraction because he's so good and he averages almost 5.2 yards per carry, and you're giving the ball half the time to Tyler Algier, who's averaging like 2.1. So it's like I don't really understand. Yeah, he is just this like stuck up. He's in his own way, and I think he's in his own way of the Falcons being successful because he's so stubborn and he won't change the offense, and that's going to be their ultimate kryptonite and downfall, and that's why they're so low because they could definitely their roster says they should be better. So
the roster is great. If they had a like Lamar Jackson, they'd be a fantastic team. And yeah, the Falcons defense has stepped up a lot. It's just, yeah, I feel like Bijan could just be a big boost if they just get him way more involved. 20 touches is needed for Bijan. I saw that video of Arthur giving that 5-minute explanation of why he's not getting touches inside the 5, and it literally was just like him talking in circles. And he said that Algier is the best goal line back and short yardage back in the NFL. But I was looking at advanced metrics and statistics that stated that Bijan's actually like the most productive short yard runner. He just doesn't really.
They haven't even given him an opportunity.
Yeah.
Every time Bijan's had to score, it's either been through the air or his one rushing touchdown was from like 15 yards out. So it's ridiculous. It's a head scratcher at this point.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith has the same amount of carries inside the 5, so it's just I think that's on you, Arthur. And we'll get on to the 23 team before we just talk about Arthur this whole episode. The Buccaneers, they've played some good football. They just played a really good team against or a good game against the Texans, who are going to be in the tier above. So I really love to see that. They've been competitive all year. They've been losing some games down the stretch. They started off hot and have been losing some games, but I think the Buccaneers, with Baker playing some really solid, serviceable football, spreading around, making Evans and Godwin solid, and Rashad White's had a really good season. So I think the Buccaneers are a really, really competitive team in about any single game they play this year.
100%. Yeah, they have. I mean, the Buccaneers all around have very good, cornerstone pieces on their defensive line. I mean, their wide receiver core, Rashad White is a very good running back. Devin White. I mean, they're very, very solid. And Baker's kind of having a little bit of a resurgence to his career, and he's just looking out serviceable out there. He's definitely not, bottom tier quarterback in this league. He's probably bottom of the mid tier. And I don't know. It is kind of weird though. It's like I don't know if Baker's ever going to be really good enough to get him to that next level, but he is good enough to win him games and keep him competitive. And that's just kind of the story of what the Buccaneers are. They're just kind of a scrappy team, they're just a very scrappy team, and Baker even is a scrappy quarterback. So, you love it, but I don't know if they can take that next step up with Baker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're in a competitive rebuild. I feel like Baker's the perfect quarterback for a competitive rebuild, and that's about it. We'll get on to the next team. The Broncos were coming in at 22, and they've risen the last few weeks for sure. Risen after beating the Chiefs, and they've played a lot more solid defensively the last few weeks. The first few weeks were just some of the worst football any NFL team has played as of the last few years. So good to see the Broncos kind of figuring some things out. Vance Joseph and Sean Payton are looking better. And yeah, I think just with Justin Simmons and Baron Browning coming back from injury, it makes the defense a lot more competent. And yeah, I think we do need to talk about the Broncos offense. It's been pretty solid this year. It hasn't been like electric or like high scoring or anything. It's just been solid and consistent. So you do like to see that compared to last year. And I think the Broncos are hard out every week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Broncos definitely are underperforming what we all thought they'd be this year. But it looked like they did have a little resurgence against Kansas City. And they finally played like complementary football from offense to defense, and they ended up beating probably the top five team. So it's kind of hard to judge the Broncos. It's kind of hard to like pinpoint where their problems are and why they're not in the insane talent tier up here. But they're a scrappy team. You don't really want to play the Broncos because you never know. Week to week, they could put up 40 points and their defense could allow 50 points, or they could all come together and they could score 40 and their defense could allow 6. So you just never know with the Broncos. They're just that scrappy tier. And yeah, it's hard to know what they're going to do in week to week situations.
And that'll transition us to the next team, because at 21, the Commanders, I feel like they're super similar to the Broncos. They just have a little bit more volatility with how their offense is kind of called, and they're a lot more kind of high scoring, and they get a lot more through the air. Sam Howell's been playing some decent football, not really safe football, but he's playing some good YOLO ball. He's on his Jameis Winston arc, and yeah, I feel like Washington beat the Broncos because of their volatility. The Broncos started off like up 20, and then Washington came back and scored 30 out of nowhere. So that's just how they are. That's why they're at this 21 spot. They could score 0 one week, or they could go and score 40 against the Eagles the next week. It's really hard to rank them, but they've been interesting, and it's interesting that their offense is better than defense for sure. It's different.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. They went out and they traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I don't know what that means, because it seems like, I mean, they lost twice to the Eagles. Maybe they just figured, we're not quite there yet. Let's see if we can sell high on our players before their contracts come up, and get some draft capital, which is in a way is very smart. But they do have a lot of really good roster talent. The Commanders, they have a very good receiving core. They're just so close to being really good. And like you said, Sam Howell definitely on his Jameis stuff, and like you never know week to week. And that's my motto for this whole competitive teams is just week to week. You never know what you're going to see out of them. I mean, one week they're going into overtime with the Eagles, the next week, and they're losing to a bottom of the barrel team. So you don't know with the Commanders.
Yeah, you really don't know week to week with them. And we'll get on to the 20 team. It's the Tennessee Titans. Kind of hard to rank them right now with Will Levis. And only his, what is it, second or third start?
Maybe his third, yeah, coming up.
Third, okay. Yeah, the second start wasn't anything crazy. The first start was electric. So it's going to be fun to see where he can take them. I feel like he makes them a more competent team. He helps complement Hopkins and Henry well, and it makes their offense and team better. And their defense has played a little bit better as of late. Vrabel's figuring some things out. They're getting some players back from injury, so I'm pretty optimistic about the Titans. We were higher on them going into the season, and they started off rough, but we both love Levis, so I think we both are expecting some good things from them moving forward.
Yeah, I was going over the quarterback roster for the AFC South, and it is young and it is very exciting. It's gonna be fun for years to watch. I mean, you got Will Levis in his first year, CJ Stroud in his first year, Trevor in his third year, and then why did I just blank the last team?
Anthony Richardson in his
Oh,
first year.
yes, with the Colts. It's right next to him on our pad. Anthony Richardson is first year. So we got three first year quarterbacks and then Trevor Lawrence, who's still pretty young. So it's gonna be exciting. And I really like the Titans and what they're able to bring with Will Levis because they're able to stretch out the field so much more and their offense just opens up. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year they move up a tier in this. But they're an exciting team, and I think we have them ranked perfect, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do move up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll get into our 19 team. It's the Colts, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans do move over the Colts in the next few weeks. But the Colts have been playing good football. They're like the highest scoring offense in the NFL. I think they're the only team that scored over 20 every game this season. So that's a crazy stat. And yeah, I feel like the Colts have kind of just been better than we expected. Anthony Richardson looked awesome, and Gardner Minshew's been serviceable enough. He's played solid, and Michael Pittman's been awesome. Josh Downs has been awesome, and there's some players like Zaire Franklin shining on that Colts defense too. So they've definitely been better than expected and very competitive. Every game they're in is competitive, high scoring, and close. And I think that's just what they are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, every game is just incredibly close. It's just incredibly. They're. This is why I named this tier the frisky tier is just because they're so scary to play. You never ever know what's happening on a week to week basis and who's going to perform and who's going to show up and who's going to go off. But yeah, they're a scary team that no one really wants to play, but with a very bright future when Anthony Richardson comes back.
Yep, definitely. And we'll get on to the 18 team, the Vikings. They're pretty similar to the Colts, just a little bit more competent. Brian Flores has made that defense really awesome. Daniil Hunter leads the league in sacks, so you'd love to see that, him finally staying healthy. He's an absolute stud. And then, yeah, on offense, you got Josh Dobbs coming in to fill in for Kirk Cousins, so that should be pretty interesting. I feel like his first week was electric. It was fun. It was like a Lynn Sanity week, but yeah, we'll see how it stays. The Vikings are in the playoffs as of right now. They're about to get Jefferson back within like the next week or so. So it's fun. They're on a win streak. They got Josh Dobbs, who's serviceable back, and I feel like the Vikings are just a good team.
Yeah, they are a really good team, and they started off very very rocky and very very tough, and it just kind of shows the resilience of this team to start off 0-4 and to come back and have like five straight wins in a row. So I mean it's really cool to see, and I kind of like the excitement of Josh Dobbs. I think he kind of brings a different element than what Kirk Cousins could bring. And it kind of switches up their team. And I feel like it kind of gives them an edge in a sense because you kind of knew what Kirk Cousins was going to do. And Josh Dobbs is a little bit more unpredictable. I don't think he's as good of a quarterback as Kirk Cousins, but he just kind of switches up that team just enough to where they stay very competitive. And he brings a whole new style of running, which won him the game last week.
Yeah, I feel like he is just kind of similar to Kirk is in the way that he'll just like will his way. The Vikings will will their way to find wins. He's just a gamer. And yeah, his legs are a boost for sure. They killed the Falcons. That's pretty much how they won last week. But we'll get on to our next tier. It's the very tough outs tier, kind of a tier of some great defenses and some, other than the Texans, some questionable offenses. But we'll start off with the number 17 team, the New York Jets. They probably have a top one defense in the NFL. They've been dominant. Salah's had a good coaching season on the defensive side. And I think it's just his blindness to changing the quarterback position, trying to help out his defense and Brees Hall and his awesome weapons like Garrett Wilson. I think it's his blindness to changing that position, try to get some more competency in there is what's really hurting the Jets and having them at 17 because they have no business being here. If they had Aaron Rodgers playing bad football, they'd still be probably around 10. So Feel bad for the Jets. They need to insert a competent quarterback in there, and once they do, they'll move up.
Yeah, I mean the Jets have probably one of the best rosters in the NFL with some absolute playmakers on offense. And honestly, I don't know, their offensive line gets a lot of hate, but it is a very talented offensive line. And I don't know if it's just the communication, between the quarterback and offensive line and protections and just not knowing what they're doing out there. But yeah, I mean this team has no business being this low. I mean they're truly, in my opinion, if Aaron Rodgers was healthy and playing, they're probably up towards the 10 to 5 tier, in my opinion. I mean, with and possibly even higher than that, because their defense is absolutely scary to play against. And they've their defenses have made Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Patrick Mahomes all look very, very not good. I mean, they played them incredibly well, and so yeah, this team has no business being here. You just hope to see them get a better quarterback in there, and hopefully Aaron Rodgers is back soon, or hopefully, at this point, maybe even put in Trevor Siemian. Just some leadership and some competency would go miles for the Jets.
Would love to see Trevor Siemian. I need to see Trevor Siemian until we do. And the Jets are going to be right here in the middle of the pack. And we'll get on to number 16, the Steelers. They've been playing a lot better as of late. They're on a little win streak. They're the 5th seed in the AFC right now. So that's awesome, way better than anyone expected them to be. And I feel like it's just the same Steelers. Mike Tomlin is literally willing his way to victories, and TJ Watt has played incredible. He won them a few games at the beginning of the year. And yeah, their defense is always stout. And this Deontay Johnson coming back has kind of really opened up the Steelers offense. It's made Najee and not Pickens, but it's made Najee and Warren better at least. So yeah, you love to see Deontay Johnson making Kenny a little bit more serviceable. And yeah, I think 16 is a good spot for the Steelers right now who are winning games.
Yeah, and I would say they're as high as 16 because of the coach, and that coach just keeps them competitive, keeps them in games. And yeah, the Steelers could easily sneak their way into the playoffs, just with how well coached they are. Mike Tomlin and that defense is just nitty gritty. And Deontay Johnson and the running backs are making an impact right now, and I think they're getting Pat Freiermuth back here in a couple weeks, so that should definitely help out in the run game and the pass game. So the Steelers might be when we do our, and maybe another power rankings here soon, they might be another 1 or 2 spots up and might be borderline playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see if they can keep these wins going. And we'll get on to a really, really similar team. I feel like they're literally the exact same. It's the NFC version of the Steelers. The New Orleans Saints are going to be 15. You've got Derek Carr coming in. And I feel like Taysom Hill just being more involved has made this offense and team better in general. Kamara coming back has obviously been huge. So, yeah, getting Hill and Kamara back has been a huge boost. You've got some receivers with some legal issues going on right now with Michael Thomas and Chris Olave getting kind of arrested recently. So that's interesting. And I think so did Jimmy Graham. So yeah, that's interesting for the Saints. But other than that, they played some good football and their defense is still awesome as always.
Yeah, again, you can say the same things I just said about the Steelers and apply it to the Saints. And I think the Saints will end up probably being another, NFC wildcard team this year. And I don't know if they'll go very far, but they definitely have some good pieces. Derek Carr, is in my opinion a kryptonite to any team. He just kind of gets rattled back there anytime there's pressure, and he just throws YOLO balls, and he's so scared of getting hit. And that's just kind of the nature of Derek Carr. He plays scared, and I don't know if that's a good thing. And I feel like it kind of caps the Saints' limits. But they are a good team. They have a very good defense. I think they're well coached, and I think they'll end up sneaking their way into the playoffs somehow.
And let's just get on to our number 14 team because I'm so excited to talk about them. It's the Houston Texans. Who would have thought number 14 right now in week 10 of the season in Stroud's rookie year? We would have been ecstatic and unbelievable to see this. Like when we did our preseason power rankings, we were like forcing the Texans higher than they should have been. I was like, we need to make the Texans higher than any power rankings we see. We were putting them at like 20, and we thought we were absolutely crazy. There's a lot of power rankings with them pretty low, and we had a feeling with D'Amico Ryans, who's been awesome, by the way. He's been incredible, game changer, cornerstone, franchise changer for the Texans. And Stroud and Will Anderson have been the same. Stroud has been a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL. It's been lights out. It's been a perfect season for the Texans, even if they don't make the playoffs. Seeing them at this 14 spot with one of the brighter futures in the NFL, you're so happy as a Texans fan.
Definitely me and yours, sweetheart team. Definitely a team we and you have both been pounding the table, rooting for nonstop. We just love the Texans and just the way it's coming together. Such a beautiful thing. And at this point, are we putting CJ Stroud in like the MVP conversation? I saw a thing on
Basically, he
that
has to
saying,
be.
like, yeah, I mean, he's got some of the best stats in the league. He makes the lowest amount of turnover worthy plays. He has the least amount of turnovers on the year from a quarterback standpoint. He protects the ball. He's a rookie. He makes every throw, and he keeps this team just on fire. And I don't know. I love the Texans. I love it. You know, go Texans. Honestly, that's my motto. Is just go Texans. I love everything they're doing there, and that team makes me happy.
It's so fun. We had a really great feeling about them, and even we couldn't have predicted this perfect season for them. And with that, we'll get on to the next tier. It's the kind of insane, overwhelming roster talent tier. It's teams that have well, some of these teams haven't played really up to expectations, but all these teams have incredible rosters, probably like top five rosters in the NFL on paper. They've just stacked star talent. So we'll start with the 13th team, the LA Chargers. They're playing a lot better as of late, coming off a good win against that awesome Jets defense we just talked about. So I feel like Mike Williams getting injured really hurts, but Herbert's been playing good football. Keenan Allen's been playing at the top of the league in the receiving category, and the biggest story on the Chargers is their defense has really stepped up. They're getting Tuli Pelotu out there. He's been a sack machine. Obviously Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack has had a little resurgence, and he looks like himself right now. So it's awesome. The Chargers are playing some good football.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny. What do you think the Chargers would be? It'd be a top five offense under Kellen Moore. You think they'd just be going crazy? The only reason they'd be winning is their offense. But all of a sudden, these last 2 weeks, the offense has been a little stale and stagnant. I mean, Justin Herbert obviously playing a couple really good. I guess not. It wasn't too stagnant against the Bears, but it was stagnant last week against a really good Jets secondary. And then the defense stepped up, and the roster talent is just phenomenal. When there's a funny little stat I wanted to point out when Tuli Pelotu, Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack are on the field, and it's a passing play. It's a 25% sack percentage. They will sack the quarterback one in every four plays they're on the field together. That's their stat line right now. So the roster talent is incredible. They're definitely underperforming for what the Chargers should be. Obviously, as you said, Mike Williams going down, now Josh Palmer going down takes a big chunk out of the offense, but yeah, just an underwhelming team for how good the roster talent is.
Yeah, that stat for the Chargers big three on the defensive line kind of just exemplifies how their season's gone. It's been awesome. The run defense has been better. And yeah, I feel like just being able to kind of move Tuli inside and kind of I feel like he looks really comfortable inside with Mack and Bosa on the outside of him. He kind of stands up as like a small interior edge. He's so awesome. He's so persistent as a pass rusher. And I love Tuli. He's gonna be
Defensive
awesome.
MVP, come on. It's time
Probably
to talk about it.
probably him or Jalen Carter. We'll see where it goes. But
Yeah.
with that, or anything else you want on this on the Chargers?
Oh no, just underwhelming. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see the defense and the run defense finally, step up and do their part. And maybe at one point of the season, they'll be playing a full complementary football from offense to defense.
Yeah, they definitely need to translate it to wins. But we'll go on to our 12 team. Pretty interchangeable with the Chargers. The Seahawks are going to be 12, and they're coming off a beatdown against the Ravens. Not going to lie, it was a rough outing. But I think we're both expecting a pretty big bounce back against the Washington Commanders this week. I think their offense is going to have a good bounce back week, and I'm not ready to hit the panic button on the Seahawks after losing to the Ravens. They might not be as good as the Ravens, but they're still a really good football team. And their defense has been better too.
Yeah, I mean, again, another like you named this tier perfectly, just insane roster talent. And the Seahawks have insane roster talent. And obviously they're just just like they're like the NFC Chargers this year. Just underwhelming, playing kind of weird football. But I have no doubt the Seahawks next time we talk about them will be a lot higher. I see the Seahawks as a playoff lock in my opinion. I just think they're too good. Their receiving core is too good. Their defense is too good. They really got some amazing corners out there. But I love the Seahawks this year, and they were your sleeper team at the beginning of this year, to make the Super Bowl. And I wouldn't even be surprised, even with that brutal beatdown last week. I think they'll bounce back. I think they'll have a good reset week, or good reset week, and then they'll get out there, and I think they'll start stacking up the wins now.
Yep, agreed. They're awesome. Jackson Smith and Jigba playing better. And we'll move on to our team 11. It's going to be the Cleveland Browns getting Deshaun Watson back last week, putting on a beat down against the Cardinals. Their defense has been incredible. They've just been shutting down everyone. They're one of the better, probably the best defense right there with the Jets. They're incredibly shut down. You love to see that. I mean, talking about roster talent in this tier, the Browns might have the best roster on paper in the entire NFL. I don't see one weak spot on that team. And Deshaun Watson hasn't played great football. He played better against the Cardinals, but hopefully he can. Hopefully, if he has a good game against the Ravens, then I'd be really, really optimistic for the Browns moving forward. The Nick Chubb injury hurts, but they played good football. Amari Cooper's a stud, and I think they'll be fine with Watson.
Yeah, I like you just said, I was going to say the exact same thing. I think this is the best roster in the entire NFL right now, and I don't think there's too much to argue. I mean, it just seems like everything is so stacked, and then the depth is so good on this team too. And yeah, I mean, just again, underperforming a little bit for how good they are. Deshaun Watson has sat out of definitely a few weeks, more than he should have. But if they can really just click, if Deshaun Watson can just start clicking, this team is scary, and just an absolute scary team you don't want to play.
And then we'll get on to the last team in this tier. Our number 10 team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I will say, with how they've been playing this year, it kind of feels a little bit criminal that they're not in the tier above. They're really close. You could put them in the fireworks tier, honestly. They're really close, but the Jaguars have been awesome. They've been winning games this year. Their defense has really stepped up. It's been a really solid defense. That's been kind of the story of their season. And I think they'll find some more consistency on offense. And Trevor's been playing flawless football this year, and ETN has been an absolute breakout star.
Yeah, I mean, they probably should. They probably will be here in a couple weeks, in that next tier above. We just couldn't put them there quite yet. Even though they beat a team in there in the tier above. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence is playing really surgical football, as you've been saying all season. The defense is electric. I think they're like number one in turnover ratio right now. And yeah, Travis Etienne on the ground. It's just everything's working for the Jaguars right now, and it just seems like something might implode. But as of right now, they're hot and they're rolling, man, and they're scary.
Rolling, and not gonna lie, I kind of put them in this tier for aesthetic purposes. You can move them up to fireworks. They're definitely a great, great, great team, and I'm totally fine with moving them up if you want. But we'll move on to our fireworks tier. We call it fireworks tier because these teams can just absolutely light up the scoreboard, just some electric offenses. And kicking off our fireworks tier, kind of knocking on the door for that alien tier. I feel like all these teams are close. They could easily be in the alien tier in a few weeks, but kicking it off, we'll start with the number 9 team, the Miami Dolphins, who started off the season as like the best team the NFL has ever seen. Just started off completely steamrolling everyone on offense, and they've kind of regressed to the mean a little bit, but they've still been absolutely fantastic. Obviously, a top 10 team in the NFL, and their defense has played solid. Vic Fangio's done good, and you get Jalen Ramsey back, a top 5 NFL corner, so that's just huge to insert that into your lineup. And yeah, the Dolphins are going to be very, very competitive. We have them right behind the Bills. I think that kind of head-to-head game kind of is the main reason, because they're really close, and they have way more volatility than the Bills. They could easily beat the Bills on any given week. That offense is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are absolutely insane. Their offense and defensive stars are just probably better than anyone else's stars. And the speed on that team is the most lethal thing probably in the entire NFL. It's just absolutely nuts. But then again, they scare us just a little bit because they haven't beaten a team over 500 in over a year. It's been longer than a year since they beat a team with a winning record. But I mean, they sure do beat the living hell out of teams that aren't, below, or that are below 500, and they really have some really big statement wins, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, Mike McDaniels and Tyreek Hill and just that whole offense is just so electric, and you don't want to play them on a week-to-week basis. It looks like Devon Achane might be coming back here in the next couple weeks. That's going to add another element of fireworks to this offense. That's just going to make them better. Jalen Ramsey's back. I mean, it just looks like it's coming together for the Dolphins. And we have the Bills over them, but I would not be surprised if I think the Bills are a little bit of a better team, but I think the Dolphins might win the division, though. I think the Dolphins might win the division, even though the Bills, in our opinion, are a little bit better.
Yeah, head-to-head matchup wise, I think they're a little bit better. But yeah, I think the Dolphins will win the division. So we'll get into our number 8 team. It's the Bills, and they're hard to rank. They're so inconsistent. We could have put them in our competitive tier. I feel like they kind of match our competitive tier teams. They're just so inconsistent. But that said, they do have an alien at quarterback, so it kind of evens it out. And the Bills could do anything on any given week against any given team, but they could also do nothing against any given team on any given week. So it's really hard with the Bills. They've honestly not looked great. They really haven't on offense or defense. Losing Matt Milano was a massive loss. Trey White was a big loss. I think Rasul Douglas will have a good season when he gets acclimated. But yeah, it's a little bit scary with the Bills. I feel like 8 is really low. They're kind of our biggest fallers from our preseason power ranking. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of felt like this was the year the Bills just went all in and just had to get it done. And yeah, I mean, I mean, the Bills really are, when we talk about 50-50 teams, they really are probably the most 50-50 team in the NFL. I mean, one week they could lose to the Bears. The next week they could beat the Eagles or the Ravens. You just don't know with them. And it all kind of depends on Josh Allen's play and if he's gonna, become that alien, which he does so often. And, if Diggs is gonna get open. And I mean, it's really nice to see Dalton Kincaid getting more involved in their offense. I think that helps substantially. And then the lack of identity in their run game, maybe Leonard Fournette might be the key piece to that. When they need those tough 3, 4, 5 yards and they need to give a guy, the ball 15 times a game and rely on that. Maybe Leonard Fournette might be the change that the Dolphins have so desperately needed because they just cannot move the ball on the ground consistently. And that's probably one of their biggest weak spots. But yeah, losing Matt Milano on the defense, absolutely crushing. He means so much to that defense that kind of revolved around him. He was the green dot guy. But you never know with the Bills. I mean, we just can't not put them in this fireworks tier because they do belong in it, but they also belong in the competitive tier. So it's just weird.
Yeah, and I could totally foresee them being in the alien tier by end of season. It's really hard. I think they'll be fine. They look fine so far this year. But we'll get on to our number 17, the Detroit Lions, who have been awesome. They've been kind of the hype team this year, and they've backed it up for sure. Their defense has played a lot better. Aaron Glenn's did a great job, and Jared Goff is just playing awesome football under Ben Johnson, Jameer Gibbs, and David Montgomery has turned into a fantastic running back duo. So yeah, you love what the Lions are doing. They're so consistent, and I'm confident they're gonna stay in this tier, if not the alien tier, the rest of the season.
Yeah, one thing just to say about the Lions is in both EPA per play on offense and defense, they rank like in the top 10 in both categories. So that's just ridiculous. That their complementary football is just brilliant. Their coaching staff is brilliant. Next year from the Lions, I will be very, 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 very surprised that Ben Johnson is still a coach there. He is probably the top candidate for a head coaching job. He could have had one this year, but he wanted to see it through with the Lions. So I mean, they're just a brilliant team, and the way they distribute the ball and everything, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. And the talent there with Gibbs, Montgomery, and then Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, even their lower tier guys can make big splashes at any given moment. They have so many electric guys. I mean, Khalif Raymond, you never know, that guy can go off. Josh Reynolds, who I can't remember if he got hurt, but like anyone on any given, any player can just absolutely take over the game for this team. And Jared Goff's playing some of the best football. I mean, he's just going out there and he's winning games and he's getting it done. And we got to give Jared Goff some credit for this team being in the fireworks tier because he's really elevated the whole roster.
Just such a complimentary, well-coached team. The most complimentary, well-coached team in the NFL right now. They're clicking. Their chemistry is awesome. You love to see it. We'll get on to our last team of the fireworks tier. Our number 6 team is going to be the Dallas Cowboys, just knocking on that alien tier door. And until they beat the Eagles, I think that's when they can join the alien tier. But if I'm being honest, if the next time they play the Eagles, they're going to win. When they play the Eagles at home, I don't know exactly what week it is. They're going to win that game. They looked really, really close. They could have easily won that Eagles game. It was so back and forth. The Eagles got that home win, but I think it'll kind of be similar in Dallas. But I think the Cowboys will win that. So I foresee them moving up to alien tier. That offense has really clicked recently. Dak Prescott is playing good football. Micah Parsons said he should be in the MVP discussion. I don't know if I would go that far, but he's played good football. Like he's playing like a top quarterback. So I do love to see that. CeeDee Lamb's just boosted that whole team so much, and that Cowboys defense is just relentless. The pass rush is crazy. They've had some injuries, but it's just a very, very solid defense, and Dan Quinn is always coaching them up well.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn and that defense are just amazing. even Mike McCarthy in the offense in these last few weeks I've talked a lot of crap on him. I still don't really like Mike McCarthy. I think there's definitely better, head coaches out there. However, the offense is ever since the Chargers game has absolutely been rolling. Dak Prescott's playing a lot better, and they are just looking like one of the better rosters in the NFL, which they have been for a long time. So, the Cowboys, again, kind of remind me awfully of the Bills. Um, I think they're a little bit more consistent than the Bills, and that's why we have them ranked higher. But again, they're like another 50-50 team. They could lose any week, but I mean, they could go beat the best team in the NFL and we wouldn't be surprised. But then they could also lose to the 49ers by 40 and we wouldn't be surprised. So they're kind of a weird team, but it looks like things are heading in the right direction. And that's why we have them at the top of the fireworks tier right now, because it looks like it's going in the right direction. They're going uphill right now and it looks good.
Yeah, and you talking about that 49ers loss by 40 is a good transition into our next team. The number 5 team in our alien tier is going to be San Francisco 49ers. They showed in that matchup against the Cowboys. They probably deserve to be a tier above. However, they're coming off 3 straight losses. That's unheard of for the 49ers, but I think we both kind of trust Shanahan and them when they get some players back from injury to figure it out. I'm not worried at all. Purdy's hasn't played the best football, but with McCaffrey and IU, Kittle, Debo, I'm not worried about it at all. And that defense is fantastic. Getting Chase Young in there now, it's going to be fireworks.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason, the 49ers, whatever's happened these last couple weeks, and whether it's Debo going down, Trent Williams going down, keeps them from being number 1 or even number 2. So I mean, they definitely at the beginning of the season, we would have crowned them the number 1 overall team, I think for sure through the first few weeks. But they got a little banged up. Brock Purdy didn't play his best brand of football, and they've fallen off a little bit. So this is a huge, huge game next week to really measure where they're at here on Sunday. So I mean, we'll get a really good feel for the 49ers this next Sunday to see if they can bounce back from this brutal 3-loss streak they're on. But yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable having them here at number 5 because they are a top 5 roster, top 5 team. We'll just see if they can figure it out here in the next couple weeks.
And we'll get on to our number 4 team, who's also been kind of falling down just a little bit the last couple of weeks, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. They coming off a loss against the Broncos. They just haven't really looked too dominant any game this season, really, if I'm being honest. They haven't looked like the Chiefs as of the last few years, and their defense is playing a lot better. They have like the top 5 defense, so you love to see that. They're obviously in the alien tier because they have Mahomes and Kelsey and Reed and a great defense. So you're optimistic for the Chiefs. They're going to figure it out. And I do want Mahomes to play more surgical. He just hasn't been sharp. He's throwing weird picks. He just hasn't been sharp. I want him to care a little bit more out there and be more surgical.
Yeah. It's kind of funny if you were to ask me what side of the ball is winning the Chiefs the games, and I was to say something other than the offense, you would be, before the season, you'd be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But it is the Chiefs defense ultimately right now. I think they're ranked number 3, in like almost every category. I mean, they are really playing good. Getting Charles Omenihu back, and then they got somebody else back. Oh, they traded for McCole Hardman on special teams, who's an also a really good addition to their offense to get him back. But yeah, their offense is just not playing good. And I would say arguably this is Mahomes and Kelsey's like one of their worst seasons we've seen. It just kind of looks a little stagnant. I mean, not to say they're still not playing very, very good football because they're still number 4 in our power rankings. It just seems like the Chiefs, and I say this, almost every week, that like I feel like they're leaving, so much meat left on the bone and so much more to be desired. But their offense outside of Mahomes and Kelsey really is not that scary. I mean, I think losing Orlando Brown and replacing him with Juwan Taylor was a big loss that not many people are talking about. I think that was substantial. And then their receivers. I mean, their receivers just aren't electric. I mean, when you have Justin Watson out there, getting half, getting a good share of the targets, it's not looking great.
Yeah, and we'll get on to our number 3 team because it might piss some people off having them above the Chiefs, but it's been the Bengals who are just playing better as of right now, and that's what these power rankings are about. And if I'm being honest, I kind of was nice to Josh here, and I let him put the Eagles at 2 because he wanted to, but personally, I'm putting the Bengals at 2. I love them so much. I'm so high on them. My Super Bowl pick before the season, and they're finally clicking. Joe Burrow is looking like definitely the most comfortable quarterback in the NFL. He looks so awesome and cool, calm, collected, surgical, serviceable out there. So you love to see it. He's balling. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both injured. Both might not play this week against the Texans. That's a little scary, but Lou Anarumo's figuring things out. Their defense has been a lot better. Trey Hendrickson's a star, and I think the Bengals are a top team in the NFL. They deserve it.
Crazy. Yeah, two AFC North teams in the top three. That's just crazy. All four of the NFC or AFC North teams in the playoffs as we speak right now. I don't think they haven't played each other a lot. So they'll start weeding themselves out over the next few weeks. But as we speak right now, all four AFC North teams are in the playoffs. And that is just ridiculous. But yeah, the Bengals, they really are coming alive. And yeah, Danny wanted them at 2. I had to put the Eagles just a tier above them, just because the Eagles have played more consistent this year, in my opinion. And I know for a fact the Eagles have an easier road to the Super Bowl than the Bengals do, especially in power rankings. They're going to have more wins just because they're in an easier conference. But I mean, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and Lou Amara, I can never say his name.
Anarumo.
Amarumo are just, I mean, Lou Amarumo is one of the best defense coordinators in the NFL. I mean, the dude is just awesome. That Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and just everyone on that Bengals defense just I mean, they carried the Bengals to the Super Bowl when they lost to the Rams. That, I mean, I don't think the Bengals had any place being there, but Lou Amaru just just
Anarumo.
just excuse me, and I can't say his name for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, they're an electric team. They're scary, and kind of like the what was I saying with the Cowboys? They're on the rise right now. They started off rough, and they're really in a resurgence right now, and just looking scary.
Yeah, if we had a better graphics guy, they'd have the fire. They'd have the NBA Jam heat by their logo right now. They're definitely on fire. And we'll go on to the number 2 team. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. They made the Super Bowl last year. They've been just right there at the same pace. They've looked pretty similar. They haven't been like dominant. They haven't been dominating teams, but they have the best record in the NFL. They've been winning games and just beat the Cowboys. It was a really close, kind of a coin flip game, but you got to respect them to beat the Cowboys. So with that, we'll give them the second spot, and they deserve it. That Jalen Hurts is a fantastic quarterback, and their defense is kind of a little bit scary. Their secondary is really scary. Their defensive line is alien tier, which is why they're still good and why they're still winning. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are 8-1, and they could very easily, it feels like, be like 8-4. Or I'm not sorry, not 8-4, but like have 4 losses. They've squeaked out of a lot of games. They've gone into overtime with the Commanders and barely won. They barely beat the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys almost. I mean, it was a play. I mean, it was one play that was inches short of the Cowboys beating the Eagles. But at the end of the day, they're finding a way to get it done, and they have the best record in the NFL right now. And I don't really expect that to change. I think the NFC is substantially easier than the AFC. And I think their path to the Super Bowl is pretty clear and bright to me, and I'm kind of seeing that right now, and so that's why I have them at number 2.
Yeah, the best path. They're just really probably the best culture in the NFL as well. I think that's the reason they're here. They are the best culture in the NFL, and that's just
Best general manager you'll ever see.
yeah,
Absolutely, just brilliant.
yeah, that team's just had the best culture for a long time now, and they're going to consistently stay here. And with that, we'll go on to our number 1 team, the Baltimore Ravens. It's pretty crazy. I feel like the last few years it's been the Bengals, Bills, and Chiefs hogging that number 1 position in power rankings, and here we are, the Baltimore Ravens. They've been absolutely balling. You love to see it, getting Todd Monken and Mike McDonald, 2 new coaches in that have been awesome. They're probably both going to be head coaches here soon, and yeah, I just really don't know like what this team's weakness is, and I don't know if they have one. So I think that's why they have to be here right now. They're the team that's just rolling over. They're beating the snot out of really good football teams like the Browns, Lions, Seahawks. So the Ravens are that team when they're at home. They're that team, and if injuries don't hit them like they have the last few years, they're going to stay here. They're a fun team, and Lamar's playing MVP football.
Yeah, I just want to say something. The Ravens beat the Browns October 1st, 28-3. October 22nd, they beat the Lions 38-6. Last week they beat the Seahawks 37-3. I mean, that's 3 of the best teams in the NFL we're talking about. And they, like you said, they just have beaten the snot out of them. They've had some really good statement wins. And Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, it should be one of the front runners for MVP. Their defense is really good. I mean, I don't see a weak spot on this team, and they're just so electric, and they're a team that I do not want to play, and I do not want to play them in Baltimore with that home field advantage they'll always have. They're just a really dangerous team right now, and Lamar Jackson is just it's so good to see him playing just the football we know he's capable of playing.
No team should want to play this team. One of the more well-coached teams, like I said, Mike McDonald coming in has made that defense incredible. That defense is stout, and they have so many stars. It's fun. Roquan Smith has been a game-changing trade for the Ravens. You love what they've been doing. That front office has really hit it out the park, and they're the number one team right now. And you love to see that. They, like you said, the NFC North might kind of weed themselves out here. The Ravens play the Browns this week, and then the Bengals on Thursday night next week. So some big games coming up for the number one team in our power rankings, and it's exciting.
Oh yeah, yeah. And maybe when we can reflect on this here, in the next 7-8 weeks, it's gonna be fun to see where we did. And maybe we'll do an episode of seeing where our power rankings ended up listing here at the end of the season. It'll be fun.
Yeah, 100%. This was really, really fun. I feel like we did a good job listing our power rankings, and yeah, we'll try to get a power rankings episode out every month. We'll kind of update it. We'll show you our risers and fallers, what we think of every team, and yeah, that was really fun. I feel like we got a lot of information out. Thanks for joining, Josh.
Yes, sir. I'm glad we got this one out today.
All right, have a good weekend, guys. Peace.
Peace.